Hello, I'm Dan Vaughn, a member of this congregation, the service leader for today, and I happily welcome you into our time of reflection and worship. Although we cannot meet in the church building due to the need for physical distancing, there are many programs to strengthen and serve members and friends of the church. Every Sunday, when we are not in the building, there is a live virtual coffee hour following the service from 11:30 until 1 p.m. Please read news you can use and other emails you receive from the church. And please check the website regularly for updates. Please note the times when the minister is available via Zoom for you to check in and talk if you need to or would like to. Please send your joys or sorrows via the link in the email you received and indicate whether you give permission for it to be read in next Sunday's service. Most importantly, remember this: whoever you are, wherever you live, whomever you love, whatever you do for a living, you are welcome at the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg. And if this is your first time to visit a Unitarian church, virtual though it may be, or you would like to know more about us, please drop us a message via the website and we will get back in touch with you just as soon as possible. We would love to tell you about our loving congregation and what a singularly unique fellowship the Unitarian Universalist Association is. I invite those of you at home to light a chalice or a candle or whatever you choose to serve as your chalice at home. We light the chalice as a light to guide our going and coming and our staying safe in place, as a symbol of the warmth of welcome, as a flame to light up the world beyond that we already know, as a light of hope in the dark times, and as a hearth around which we gather as a community.
Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is our gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak our truths in love, and to help one another.
Please join in singing our opening hymn, We Laugh, We Cry. We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give. We have our thoughts to receive. And we believe that sharing is an answer. Our lives are full of wonder and our time is very brief. The death of one among us fills us all with pain and grief. But as we live, so shall we die, and when our lives are done, the memories we shared with friends, they will linger on, and we believe in life and in peace within our living is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a joy being together. And in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question truly is an answer.
Good morning. I want to start out this morning by encouraging us all to remember all of those who we hold dear to our hearts, who we have lost. Maybe we lost them years ago, or perhaps they passed more recently. I have always been a strong believer in the idea that as long as we have memories of our loved ones and we share those memories with others, our loved ones will always live on. So this morning I'm going to read you a story called My Grandson Lou, written by Charlotte Zolotow, and the illustrations are by William Penne Dubois. Louis woke in the night. His mother heard him call. "What is it?" she said, sitting on the edge of his bed. "I miss Grandpa," Louis said. "You miss him?" said Lou's mother. "You were 2 when he died. Now you're 6, and you never asked for him before." "I think about him, though," said Lou. "I remember him. He had a beard, and it scratched when he kissed me." "What else?" asked his mother. "What else do you remember?" "Blue eyes," said Louis. "I remember how his beard scratched, but I remember his eyes more. He gave me eye hugs, nights like this when I woke up and called." "Grandpa came in the night?" asked Lou's mother. "Yes," said Lou. "I'd call, and instead of you, Grandpa would come. He had a long white bathrobe, and he'd look like a sailboat coming in the door. He'd lean over and pick me up, his beard scratched, and then he'd smile and hug me. He'd carry me into the other room and walk up and down and hum a sort of tune. I could hear it rumbling in his chest." "I never knew this," Louis's mother said. "What else do you remember?" "He wasn't here much," said Louis. "He came when you and Father went away. I remember him mostly at night, but once in the daytime we went out. He carried me up a lot of stairs and we looked at pictures with bright colors and one of an ocean and a sky." "The museum," said Lou's mother. "You do remember. He told me later you fell asleep on the way home. You never talked about it. I never knew you remembered him at all." "I only half remember," Louis said, "but I can still feel him carrying me. His arms were strong, and he smelled of powder and tobacco. Once he let me warm my hands around his pipe. I waited, but he hasn't come back, and I miss him." "You never asked about him, though," Lou's mother said. "He always came back," Lou said, "without me saying anything. I've been waiting for him." "He lived a long way from here," Lou's mother explained. "He never asked, so I never told you Grandpa died." "I want him to come back. I miss him," Louis said. "I have been waiting for him, and I miss him especially tonight." "I do too," said Lou's mother. "But you made him come back for me tonight by telling me what you remember." "I'll tell you something I remember." "What?" Lou asked. He always laughed when he was happy, Lou's mother said. When you were born, he laughed out loud when he looked at you. My grandson, he said, my grandson Lou. He took you out of the nurse's arms and handled you as though you were a kitten. He touched your hair and your cheek and smiled at you as though you and he were the only ones in the room. My grandson, he kept saying, my grandson Lou. Then he leaned over and put you on the bed beside me. He kissed me too. Anytime you want, he said, I'll come and stay with him. I know how to take care of babies because I took care of you. And whenever your father and I went away, Grandpa took a plane back here to stay with you. But I never knew. He never told me you called him in the night. He liked to paint. That's why he took you to the museum. He is too little, I had said. He won't remember. But I do, said Lou. I remember him taking me. I miss him. So do I, Lou's mother said. But now we will remember him together, and neither of us will be so lonely as we would be if we had to remember him alone. Memorial Day is about remembering not only the heroes lost in battles during wartime, but also allows us to remember those heroes who gave their lives helping others, to remember treasured family members, beloved members of our own UCH community we have recently lost, and anyone else you want to remember who is now no longer an active part of our lives. So, to all the loved ones we have lost, remember them fondly and share the memories you have of them with others.
No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love prevails in heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing?
Good morning. My name is Paul Hayden. Memorial Day is typically seen as a time for honoring fallen heroes and expressing a form of collective gratitude for those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our community. While this traditionally has focused on soldiers killed in action, in the 21st century it has come to include police, firemen, paramedics, and other first responders after the fearless service and sacrifice made by those during 9/11. I suspect that doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers will be added in the years to come after the COVID pandemic. While this narrative helps to fuel cultural norms around service to community by honoring those who make the ultimate sacrifice, I find myself thinking about gratitude on a somewhat different level. Gratitude on behalf of a nation or a city is one thing. Individual gratitude can be no less poignant. I suspect many of us might be thinking of our loved ones who are no longer with us and reminiscing about how our lives are richer because of their presence. I find myself, though, thinking about those who might not be counted among our inner circle and how they have also enriched our lives. Shortly after Mary Lynn and I relocated to Hershey in 2009, I met a patient whom I'll call Frank. Frank had been orphaned as a child, and he was lucky enough to be one of those who attended the Milton Hershey School. Frank attended Milton Hershey through high school, living on the grounds, working the farms, and striving to be the best that he could be. He went on to college, paid for by the Hershey School, and he took a job in the Pennsylvania state government after graduating. He married and settled down in Hershey, raising a son and a daughter. When he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease later on in his life, he received all of his care at the Hershey Medical Center. He was a rabid Hershey Bears fan, and he owned season tickets to Bears games for all of his life, rarely missing a game. His whole circle of friends and social network was in Hershey. It would not be an understatement to say that Hershey was the setting for his entire life story. Frank's son and daughter grew up and got married, and they made their way in the world, his daughter as a nurse in North Carolina, and his son as an investment agent in San Diego. They had children of their own, and Frank and his wife lived the kind of life that many would associate with the American dream. Nothing flashy, but comfortable and connected to family and community. By the time that Frank had come to transfer his primary care to me, his wife had died, but he was still working and still living in the family home. Frank had a sunny, optimistic disposition that made him instantly likable, and he was always grateful and wanting to talk about the incredible gifts that had blessed his life. I grew to look forward to our visits, and my mood perked up whenever I saw him on my schedule. As is normal in life, Frank grew older and more infirm. A series of health issues conspired to force the decision to retire, although not until he was well into his 70s. His Parkinson's grew worse, and he had trouble moving and driving, to the point that I began to fear that he would not be safe living alone at home. His son and daughter had similar concerns, and we spoke on the phone about it on several occasions. I remember the day in clinic when Frank and I dialed his son on the phone, and the son and I staged an intervention to help Frank understand the risk and make two monumental decisions. One, the decision to give up driving, and two, the decision to sell the house and relocate to a nursing home. I remember Frank looking me in the eye and saying, "So, you're asking me to give up my freedom?" And me squeamishly trying to reframe the move to a nursing home as not taking away his freedom, but enabling a different kind of freedom. Frank did not want to move from the Hershey area closer to his son or daughter. He stated that my whole life is here. He remained optimistic, and while the transition to the nursing home took some time, he eventually adapted, and he still continued to attend every Hershey Bears game. I received the message about a month ago from the nursing home. Frank had a low-grade fever and a runny nose, and the nurses wanted instructions. Another resident of his home, who lived in Frank's hall, had been admitted to the medical center the previous evening with COVID. I activated our response team, and we started aggressively monitoring the situation. Things went fast. 2 days later, Frank was having trouble breathing, and he came to the medical center. In the emergency room, with his son on the phone from San Diego, Frank made the decision not to get admitted to the hospital, but rather to return to the hospice wing of his nursing home. He lived 1 more week and was lucid for most of that period, FaceTiming with his son and daughter and grandchildren and saying his goodbyes. His first great-grandchild was born the day before he died. I'm going to miss Frank. I'm going to miss his ever-present smile, his sunny disposition, and his never-ending dialogue teaching me about the gifts he had been given and his commitment to give back. Frank is part of the community of patients that I consider myself blessed to have served. While remembering my loved ones who have died is often triggered randomly and can occur on any given day of the year, this Memorial Day, I'm grateful for those who have taught me, whose presence in my life might otherwise be overlooked. These people have been part of my community, and my life is richer because they were in it. This Memorial Day, I'm grateful for Frank, and I'm grateful for all of the Franks of the world who make our lives worth living. Thank you.
Today in this congregation, someone is hurting or in sorrow. Today in this congregation, someone is anxious because of events in the world. Today in this congregation, someone's lonely. Today in this congregation, someone is filled with joy and wants to celebrate. For all the fear and sorrow in the world today, there are still moments of joy. I'd like to share with you now certain sorrows in our congregation and concerns. Our beloved member of this community since she was a child, Chandra Hill, has passed away of natural causes last Sunday, May 17th. She was only 34 years old. She was married here to Jason Strunk, whom she had met while in high school. Their daughter, Elia Hill, is 13 years old. Chandra was active in the group We March, We Act, an integral part of this congregation, since its first meeting in 2017. A date for her services have not yet been set. You may help Jason and his family with the funeral and other immediate costs by contributing online or by check. Your memorial gift will be immediately helpful if you give online via PayPal, or you may send a check to the church. Go to the church website for further information. Emily Webb, one of our members, says, "Prayers for my father as he recovers from major surgery. May he find healing and joy in the weeks, months, and years ahead." We have heard the words of the people who have placed their joy and sorrow before this community and before the holy. The words they have shared are words of love and trust. Love for those whose names have been spoken, and love for those who hear. Trust in the acceptance of this community, and trust in the continuity of life. Where there is birth, life goes on. Where there is death, life goes on. Where there is joy, life goes on. Where there is sorrow, life goes on. May we always live in trust and in love, that all joy might be shared and all sorrow comforted. This is our prayer. Over the years, I've had the honor of speaking at a number of community Memorial Day events and delivered more Memorial Day sermons than I can remember. On top of that, I've presented easily over 100 funerals, which are, in essence, memorial services as well. Most have had common elements, reflected on the lives lived, the accomplishments, the victories, notable events, significant relationships, with the focus of Memorial Day primarily being one to remember and honor those who have served our country, and especially those who gave their lives in that service. That has always been the center of my message. And at each Memorial Day ceremony, I never fail to mention my dad, Staff Sergeant Paul William Tannehill of the United States Marine Corps. My dad, technically my stepdad, but for those of you who can understand, many of us don't think in those terms. He was just my dad. My dad was a veteran of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He served 2 tours of duty in both Korea and Vietnam. He was, without a doubt, the most influential man in my young life. Though he served those wars and came into my life when I was 12 years old by marrying my mom, he passed on in the year 2005 from cancer caused by his exposure to Agent Orange. So he too was one of the thousands who gave his life for our country. I love you, Dad, and I miss you. Around this country, people will continue the tradition of honoring those who have fallen in battle and those who served in the military and later died as veterans. And as Dr. Paul Hyde mentioned, we have added to those numbers or to those traditions remembering law enforcement officers, firefighters, and others who sacrificed their lives on behalf of the country and to their local communities. And I think it is right that we do so. But this year's different, isn't it? Practically no parades will be held. Still, the majority of citizens are taking seriously the importance of social distancing and self-isolation. And I think it is good that they do so. It's good and sound. Being foolhardy at this time does no good whatsoever. So instead, our memorials will be quieter, more intimate. The healthy practice of reflection and remembering will be hopefully even more a part of this solemn holiday. Perhaps this Monday will be less about burgers on the grill, sales in the stores, parties at the lake, and more about the ultimate price paid by so many over the last 2.5 centuries. There is something else different about this Memorial Day weekend that none of us anticipated on Memorial Day in 2019. How could we have known that a year later, a fast-spreading virus would be the scourge of humanity, decimating communities and countries in its wake, with lives lost, families torn asunder, and economies wrecked? By the time that you see this message, it is likely that the official number of COVID-19 related deaths in just the US alone will exceed 95,000 people. To give context, 80,000 people died from the effects of the atomic bomb that was dropped on Nagasaki. We have lost 95,000 people in 3 months, our fellow citizens, and for too many of us, our loved ones. The combined deaths of Americans in the Vietnam, Iraqi, and Afghanistan wars combined totaled 64,664. American fatalities make up 1/3 of the deaths worldwide and 1/4 of the confirmed cases. I spent a lot of time trying to get an accurate number of how many healthcare workers and support personnel had contracted the virus and perished from it. Those numbers are hard to determine at this time. Worldwide, there have been at least 90,000 healthcare workers to get the disease, to test positive for the presence of the virus. Over 9,000 of them in the United States. According to the CDC, as of the second week of April, well over a month ago, 27 had died from the coronavirus, 27 healthcare workers. Those numbers are really extremely conservative, and it will be a long time before we really know how many have been infected and perished. It's not a stretch of the imagination to say that by the end of this year, the number of fatalities among healthcare workers will be in the hundreds, and certainly the number of overall dying in this country from COVID-19 will be over 100,000. This disease, combined with self-serving economic strategies and spineless, ignorant leaders, has also created the perfect storm. The storm that has created what is right now in its nascent stage, but will likely be known as the Second Great Depression. All that being said, we are at another tragic, dark moment in our history. And so, yes, there is something new about this Memorial Day, something different. about this holiday. We approach it with new awareness of the brevity of life. Hearts are freshly broken and bleed with sorrow, and uncertainty about what is to come has settled into our lives. And so what are we to do? How do we handle this new layer draped over our Memorial Day traditions? We certainly can't ignore it. We can't hide it with the flag. We dare not minimize those who went into battle against this deadly virus with, too often, insufficient PPE, taking the great chance of getting the disease themselves. Heroically, even though they didn't want to be heroes, they go and do their job to save lives, endangered in a way that no one should have to be. How do we properly memorialize COVID-19 fallen, the masses whose lives were cut short, and especially those who fell while trying to help others fight this deadly virus? I believe the answer is given in the lessons I got from my parents, from my mom, who taught me about love and caring and things that really mattered in life, and in this instance, even more so from my dad. You see, Dad was proud to have been a Marine. He retired from the Marine Corps, 25 plus years in the Marine Corps, but he never went in for all of the patriotic trappings. When we suggested getting veterans plates for the family car, he said no way. He wasn't going to draw attention to himself. His one little concession, he allowed a Semper Fi sticker to be put on the back window. When we wanted to recognize him publicly for his service, he would have none of it. I remember him distinctly telling me, I got paid for my job. I did what I was supposed to do. I did my duty for my country. That's all I need. I feel comfortable in suggesting that what honored Dad the most were his 5 children striving to be good and decent people, living lives of loving generosity and care for those in need. He would see that as his reward, as his memorial. I also feel comfortable in suggesting that that is the best way for us to memorialize those I have mentioned today. Sure, there will be granite edifices erected. There will be fancy speeches and long-winded politicians uttering empty words, especially empty when they refused to ignore the advice, refused to, and wouldn't listen to the advice of the wise voices, and are more focused on feathering their own nests and getting reelected than preventing catastrophes such as this. I assure you much blood is on their hands. Jets will zoom overhead, wreaths will be laid, ceremonies and parades will tug at our emotions, but those aren't the things the fallen, looking from the other side of the divide, would really want of us. They are better memorialized by our resolve to now make this world a better place, this country a better country for every citizen, this community one for the poor as well as the comfortable. We remember their sacrifice best by reversing the things that made us unprepared this time, by taking seriously the science as it is put before us for the next great pandemic, by envisioning then enacting an economic system that protects every citizen, not just the wealthy, by reversing a mentality of division and selfishness that has woven its way into the fabric of our society. by recognizing the corruption that betrays our highest ideals and institutions as a nation, and by showing the door to those who are corrupting it, by rescuing and healing our severely wounded planet, and finding ways to inhabit it more wholesomely. We honor and memorialize those fallen ones by fulfilling the words of the prophet Isaiah in chapter 2, verse 4, where he says, "The people of the world shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore." May this be our new memorial. Even as you are separated and sitting in your own homes today, the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg is still a freely gathered church of free people. The church is created, sustained, and supported by you. The ministry continues even when the building is closed. In the space below the video screen, you will find directions on how to give an offering today in support of the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg, our community partner for the month of April. Each month we share half of the Sunday plate with a local nonprofit organization. Our partner in sharing this month is the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank. The Central Pennsylvania Food Bank serves 27 counties across Pennsylvania. An affiliate of Feeding America and Feeding Pennsylvania, the food bank maintains healthy food hub locations in Harrisburg and Williamsport to serve the geographically dispersed community and distributes food via a large network of local partner agencies. The need for food assistance has increased significantly during the COVID-19 quarantine months, so your financial support and commitment matter all the more. Please be generous. I would invite you now to a moment of envisioning. Please, if you are comfortable in doing so, close your eyes and paint in your mind this image. We're gathered together in the coolness of a spring morning, standing for the most part on the dew-covered green grass that slopes gently down to the quiet river's edge. Trees line the other side of the river, and the sunrise peeks from beyond the fragile new leaves. An unidentifiable tune is in the air, played by an unidentifiable instrument. Perhaps it's a flute or a quietly played trumpet. Maybe a guitar or violin, or even the clear voice of a child. Some of us hear undertones of a military dirge. Others detect something distinctly spiritual, perhaps reminiscent of our particular religious heritage. Still others sense a primal, earth-centered cadence. We each hear it differently, except that we all hear a lament, a soulful tune that reminds us of who is lost, irretrievable, but remembered just the same. It stirs in us a convergence of memories, celebrations of milestones, moments of intimacy, regrets of harsh exchanges, the steady flow of daily routines shared. The ones we shared them with, gone, because like the water in the river, they have flowed away. But still, we remember. And now in your mind's eye, as you depart this solemn company, go out and take action to truly memorialize the lost ones you cherish. Do something to make this world a better place, and you have truly honored them. Bring light to the darkness and confusion. Bring love to the empty hearts. Bring joy to those who cannot find it.
Please join in singing our closing hymn, Blue Boat Home. Low below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now. Never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun my sail and moon my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home.
As a benediction, I wish to share with you the Memorial Day prayer by Barbara Peskin. Spirit of life, whom we have called by so many names, in thanksgiving and in anguish, bless the poets and those who mourn. Send peace for the soldiers who did not make the wars, but whose lives are consumed by them. Let strong trees grow above the graves far from home. Breathe through the arms of their branches. The earth will swallow your tears while the dead sing, no more, never again. Remember me. For the wounded ones and those who received them back, let there be someone ready when the memories come. When the scars pull and the buried metal moves, and forgiveness for those of us who were not there for our ignorance. And in us, veterans in a forest of 1,000 fallen promises, let new leaves of protest grow on our stumps. Give us courage to answer the cry of humanity's pain. And with our bare hands, out of full hearts, with all our intelligence, let us create peace. So be it. Blessed be. Amen.